start by reading the Bible in Genesis chapter 22. We'll just start reading at verse 1. Genesis 22, verse 1. Sometime later God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains, and I will tell you about it. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took with him two of his servants and his son Isaac. And when he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out from the place God had told him about. On the third day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, stay here with the donkey, while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the two of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father, Abraham, Father? Yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and the wood are here, Isaac said, but where's the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the two of them went on together. When they reached the place God had told him about, Abraham built an altar there, and then laid the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay the boy. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham, here am I, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, the Lord will provide. And to this day it is said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. Can we go over to John chapter 3, verse 16? Sorry. Well, yes, John chapter 3, verse 16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whosoever or whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe stands condemned already, because they have not believed in the name of God's one and only Son. And then over into John chapter 14. John chapter 14, verse 6. Jesus answered, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Okay. Every so often I'll just say click, and that just means somebody at the back will move it onto a slide which does something else. I hope the technology works, because that's always the hardest bit, isn't it? And I hope this is a triumph of substance over content, if that makes sense. As you'll have gathered from the reading tonight, I'd like to have a talk about a father and son experience. Okay, click. Yesterday we had a wee father and son experience. Josh and I went up, well, I'd like to call it a mountain, but most people call it a mound or a small hill or a hillock. And that's my impersonation of one of those cut-out graphics that have just been superimposed on top of a mountain. You know, like, well, just put me on top of the next mountain that I arrive at. Josh and I've been planning this all week, and Josh was kind of saying, I'd quite like to do this. This sounds interesting, and I'm as overweight almost as you are, so I'd like to lose some weight. And I'll come out walking with you. And he'd come out, he'd been out a couple of walks, and he got himself a pair of new boots. Sorry, I bought him a pair of new boots, and we went out walking together, and just around about Glasgow. And if you've been on Facebook and you see every so often it comes up, Forbes has been out running again. It's not true. Forbes walks, okay? Forbes walks around Glasgow, but you can see the map, and they're going, click. And this is how I walk, and I've already talked to you about this wee blue dot. But you can see that wee blue dot. That wee blue dot comes up in my phone. It comes up in my iPhone. It'll come up in any phone because it's a Google product rather than an Apple product. But that wee blue dot, as I've said before, that wee blue dot is connected to satellites. That wee blue dot is a direct connection to signals from satellites sent to my phone. Well, from this satellite you're hearing, from that one you're hearing, from this one you're hearing. And the next slide will show you that it can tell you how close you are within the range. So somewhere in that greater circle, around about the blue dot, I was standing there. The next interesting thing about this is that because the satellites are in different positions, and if you click and go to the next slide, you can see here that the satellite, the phone's intelligent enough to take that signal and actually say, which way were you pointing at any particular moment? And this happens to be towards the back wall in our lounge. Yeah? So I'm standing in the lounge, the back wall over here. The windows are down here, and so I looked out. There's a very interesting thing about this all. Next slide. You can see in this slide, click, there's a wee aeroplane in the top corner. The whole concept of this is you can still keep your phone on and play your games or do your emails when you're on a plane, but there's no signal. And if there's no signal, you don't get a wee blue dot. There's no map. Okay? There's no map if there's no signal. The whole of what we're going to talk about tonight is based on this book. It's based on the Bible. These are rules which God's laid down. They're truths which God has given. There's no pages that you can change. This isn't a loose leaf edition. You know, it starts at page 1 and goes through to the end. The books are all numbered. They're named. They have verses and chapters. You can't take bits out of it that you like or leave bits out that you don't want. This is a complete set of rules. And the whole of what we're speaking about tonight is based on that set of rules. Whether you believe them or not, whether you don't believe, whether the signal's not getting through, it really doesn't matter. It's not God's issue. Because the moment you're willing to turn on the signal and look for the satellites, they're there. They're always there. Just because you're not looking for the satellites doesn't mean that the signal's not there to be picked up.